In the realm of international relations, three rules hold the most crucial part. Number 1, mutual trust between the two nations. Number 2, economic ties among them. And last bit, not the least, shared strategic interests that they uphold. But there is a particular pair that defies all sanity. Two nations, seemingly worlds apart, yet bound together like two hearts beating as one. So what makes the U.S. and Israel indivisible partners? What fuels their unbreakable bond? Let us go back into the history. As we unravel the mystery of this unbreakable bond between the U.S. and Israel, we find ourselves transported to the battlefields of World War I. It was here, amidst the chaos, that a seemingly innocuous document would change the course of history forever. The document named as the Balfour Declaration. What was the Declaration, and how did it change the history? The Balfour Declaration, penned in 1917, was a promise made by the British government to the Jewish people, supporting the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. But what drove this decision? To understand the motivations behind the Balfour Declaration, we must first grasp the concept of Zionism. In a word, Zionism is longing, a deep-seated yearning for a homeland, a place to call home one's own. For the Jewish people, this longing was rooted in a centuries-old dream of returning to the Promised Land. But as we delve deeper, we discover that the Balfour Declaration was not solely driven by altruism or a desire to fulfill the Jewish people's ancient longing. No, there were more complex forces at play, and this is how all begins. In the midst of World War I, Germany and Britain were locked in a fierce struggle for dominance. Germany had forged an alliance with the Ottoman Empire, while on the other hand, Britain needed a powerful ally to counterbalance this threat. And so, they turned to the Jewish community, particularly in America and Britain. British government saw an opportunity to harness the support of the Jewish people, and thus the Balfour Declaration was born, a promise that would forever alter the course of history. But what had U.S. to do with that? As we delve into the intriguing tale of why the U.S. supported the Balfour Declaration, we find three main reasons to support the declaration. So what was the first reason behind the U.S.'s endorsement of the Balfour Declaration? The answer lies in the heart of U.S. President Woodrow Wilson, a devout Christian who believed in the prophecy of the Jewish people returning to their homeland. As he pored over the pages of the Bible, he became convinced that the time had come to fulfill this ancient prophecy. To put in simple words, it was biblical prophecy that encouraged U.S. President to endorse the declaration. But there were two more reasons, equally significant, that contributed to the U.S.'s favor for the declaration. The second reason behind the U.S.'s support for the Balfour Declaration is a tale of strategic interests seeking to expand dominion over the world. It's the story of the Suez Canal, a waterway that connected Asia to Europe, a lifeline of trade and commerce that flowed through the heart of the Middle East. The U.S., with its growing economic and military might, had long been eyeing the Suez Canal. U.S., considering it a golden opportunity, supported the Balfour Declaration, hoping to gain a foothold in the region, to secure its interests in the Suez Canal, and to expand its influence over the Middle East. But as we navigate the twists and turns of this tale, we find that there's more to the story than meets the eye. A third reason, equally intriguing, awaits us. The third reason, a tale of persuasion, takes us into the world of high-stakes diplomacy, where powerful leaders and cunning strategists pulled the strings of power like U.S. from behind the scenes. Meet Chaim Weizmann, a cunning Zionist leader who had forged close ties with the British government. Weizmann's charisma and persuasive abilities had won over many influential friends, including the British Prime Minister, David Lloyd George. But Weizmann's influence didn't stop there. He had also cultivated relationships with key figures in the U.S. government, including President Woodrow Wilson's advisor, Louis Brandeis. Through these connections, Weizmann and other Zionist leaders exerted significant pressure on the U.S. government to support the Balfour Declaration. Their lobbying efforts ultimately tipped the scales in favor of the declaration, and hence this was the very first time when Jewish lobbies started developing its roots in U.S. strategic decisions. Time passed. Zionist movement was at its zenith when the curtains drew open on a new era in the Middle East. The Balfour Declaration paved the way for the establishment of the State of Israel. On May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion, the head of the Jewish Agency, stood at the Tel Aviv Museum and proclaimed the birth of Israel, where on one side the world condemned it and declared Israel an illegitimate state, while on the other side, U.S. President Harry Truman recognized the new state just 11 minutes after its declaration. Can you believe that? Just 11 minutes? It was now evident that how much the U.S. adored the Israel apparently. But this was not the end of the story, for behind the scenes, a subtle rift had emerged within the United States. A rift between the Pentagon and the U.S. government. Renowned scholar Noam Chomsky shed light on this dichotomy, revealing that Pentagon and the government were at the odds on how to react to the new state of Israel. While the Pentagon was impressed by Israel's military prowess, the government harbored reservations and feared the consequences in Middle East. However, the Pentagon's admiration for Israel's military might ultimately win out, shaping the U.S. Israel relationship into what we see today, a bond that can be likened to a bee's attraction to honey. And it was this time that Pentagon history procured a very sarcastic clarification, which is still resonates at times. It says, Israel is the military officer of United States. It must be known that it wasn't just a claim. It proved in history later, and we are about to discuss it within the video. As the sun set over the Middle East, a young nation named Israel held its breath. Its leaders had a dream, a vision of a greater Israel that stretched beyond its borders. But to achieve this dream, they needed a powerful friend. A friend that could support its nefarious atrocities in the near future. A friend that could easily get flattered and set free its reins to be harnessed by Israel. Less a friend, but more of a pawn. And that's where the United States came in. All what happened was that, in 1958, the U.S. intervened in the Lebanon crisis, sending its troops to the troubled region. The world condemned the U.S. intervention, but Israel saw an opportunity. It quickly came out in support of the U.S., showering it with praise and gratitude. It was a clever move, a pre-planned flattery, and a full-fledged unctuousness, one that would start a beautiful friendship between the two nations. And the very same happened in the near future. It was year 1967. All Israel's strivings to win affection of U.S. proved fruitful. As A. Wiseman once said, flattery and unctuousness never go unrewarded, and so was the faith of illegitimate nation Israel. Taking complete advantage of control over the U.S. reigns, it was second time in history when Israel was planning to use the states as a pawn, and Golan Heights served a reason to spread anarchy. The Golan Heights, a strategic plateau in southwestern Syria that offered a commanding view of the region. Its strategic location allowed for control of the Jordan River, a vital water source for the region. It also provided a natural buffer against potential threats from Syria. And on this side of story, vandalism was at its zenith. Israel's leaders knew that capturing the Golan Heights would be a game changer, giving them a stranglehold on the region. And then a 6-day war between Israel and its Arab neighbors, Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon, begins. As the war raged on, the international community watched in horror. The United States, or should we call it the puppet states, however, stood firmly behind its master Israel, despite the condemnation of the world. And the results were very same as per expected. The savages captured the area, rendering almost around 25,000 Syrians to death and multitudes of Syrians displaced from their homeland. After all these blatant oppressions and suppressions, you might be thinking that some investigations would have come into the play, or someone would have dared to inquire and question the savages. Which security councils you talk about? Which United Nations you believe in? What investigations you seek? Nothing happened. Nothing at all. And whosoever dared was forcefully hushed and vaped out of sight. After all, who's got enough nerves to control one that already has its curb over a superpower of time? No one dares. Even no one cares. And hence to this day, Golan Heights remains under Israel's capture. But this was not the end of the rapaciousness of Israel. Rather, it was just end of beginning. You want to hear more, so come closer. Let us know how U.S. was again used to ruin Iran. In the scorching summer of 1951, Iran's Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh sparked a firestorm that would shake the Middle East. With a bold stroke, he nationalized Iran's oil industry, seizing control from British and American companies. Israel watched with alarm, fearing this nationalist fever would spread, threatening their own existence. So what? Israel knew that the reins of powerful U.S. lie in their hands, and the only thing they need to do is pull them, just like a puppeteer pulls the strings and makes the puppets dance. Israel manipulated the United States into launching Operation Ajax, a covert operation to topple Mossadegh's government. Chaos erupted in Tehran as paid mobs clashed with loyalists. Mossadegh fell, and the nationalization of Iran's oil industry was reversed. British and American companies regained control, and Israel's interests were protected. And the world evidenced the powerful U.S. transformed into a pawn for third time in history. Yet the leaders of so-called superpower U.S. consider their nation to be an indispensable nation. Oh, really? There are numerous chapters in the book of manipulation I hold. But time says, some other day. So let's finish this all with learning a last but not the least manipulation trick played by Mr. Culprit on a noble land. Iraq. The drums of war beat again, and the United States, under Israel's subtle manipulation, marched into Iraq. The year was 2003, and the world watched in horror as the U.S.-led coalition unleashed a maelstrom of fire and steel upon the Iraqi people. The pretext was familiar. Weapons of mass destruction, WMD, a threat to global security. But the true motives lay shrouded in a web of deceit and hidden agendas. Israel's hand once again pulled the strings from behind the scenes, orchestrating a war that would serve its own interests. Execution of Saddam Hussein. As the war raged on, the Iraqi people suffered, caught in the crossfire of a conflict that was never truly theirs. The U.S., pawned by its master, failed to see the destruction it wrought, the lives it shattered, and the suppression it did. while on the other hand, Israel, the puppet master, smiled in the shadows, its goals achieved, its interests secured. History evidenced, and the world as well. Saddam, who once dared to set multitudes of rockets on Israel, was hanged to death. Once a prudent said, "If you want to know who controls you, then see the one whom you can't criticize, and if literally you don't care, then play blind." And so, as we peel back the layers of history and power, we are left with a question. Who truly pulls the strings in the world's grandest puppet show? Is it the mighty superpower, the United States? Or does a shadowy hand guide its every move from behind the scenes? The story doesn't end here, and neither should the conversation. What do you think about the intricate relationship between the U.S. and Israel? Was the United States manipulated, or were they complicit in shaping the world as we know it today? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss. If you found this eye-opening, don't forget to hit that like button and make sure to subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode where we dig deep into the stories that the world doesn't want you to hear. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and always question the narrative.